Hello there everybody, What Culture Wrestling's Adam Cleary here, back with your doctor-enforced dietary required slice of gold-fried hashtag good afternoons, joined once again this week not by Housewife's favourite Adam Nicholas, but by your pal and mine, Andy Murray. Now coming up today, if you've been wondering why The Miz was hosting Talking Smack, then good news I'm going to tell you. But if you've also been wondering about Pat McAfee's status in NXT, then you're not going to believe this, but I'm going to tell you about that as well.
I'm going to tell you all about Kairi Sane, who may have returned to WWE in a secret backstage role. And on top of that, we've got Jimmy Corderas' thoughts on AEW officiating, which is definitely a story I thought I would be reporting on today. Cool. Anyway, let's fire straight into that one, shall we? Ex-WWE official shoots on AEW referees. Jimmy Corderas here, longtime official in WWE. He was on the Wrestling Inc. Daily podcast and he had some sharp words for what's currently going on with AEW's officiating. He said that he hoped that his good friend Mike Chioda, who's in AEW now of course, would hopefully improve the standards of refereeing in the promotion, but then pointed out that he'd been guilty of some lazy tropes himself during a match between Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy the other week. Jimmy said that he didn't like the way Chioda was distracted by what was happening outside the ring. That almost led into the finish, although Cassidy ended up coming away with the victory. He said he spotted this kind of officiating in AEW before. Now, he did say, in fairness to Chioda, that he felt that the wrestlers were primarily responsible for this because he knows many refs who speak up and express their concerns about looking silly, and sometimes the wrestlers just go, "Shut up, referee, we're going to make you look silly." Quote from Mr. Corderas here, "To me, it's the guys putting the match together because at the end of the day, as a referee, you're doing what they want you to do." He wants Chioda to use his experience to bring the other officials in AEW up to his level, or give them the confidence to suggest things that would protect their credibility. It's an interesting take here. Obviously, long-time official in the biggest wrestling promotion in the game, and you respect that to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, he's a referee, so he's going to see flaws that a lot of people there don't see. I can't ever say I'm sitting there going and looking at Bryce Remsburg and Rick Knox and Aubrey Edwards and going, you know what? You guys just aren't flexing your authority enough. In fact, the complaint with Aubrey in particular is that maybe she does it a little bit too much. I disagree with that, but here we are. Jimmy Corderas, Adam Corderas, what's your take?
My take on this is always the same with referees. I just think as wrestling moves further and further and further and further to try and make things feel a bit more logical, a bit more realistic, stories getting pulled down because they don't quite feel like they could happen. Basically, as the lines get blurred more between pro wrestling and MMA, referees really badly need to catch up with that because they're still very hokey and still very corny. But all this talk of ref versus ref beef can only get me horny for one thing, Andy Murray, and that is watching Earl Hebner versus Nick Patrick again. Now, a load of you sitting there at home going, I want to talk about referees, I want to talk about American footballers, and fine, okay, Pat McAfee, he was in NXT very recently. It was the angle, the story that nobody knew they wanted, nobody thought they wanted, but that everybody was absolutely crying out for. He got involved in a spat with Adam Cole about Adam Cole being short, and everyone was on the internet like, oh, do you think it's a work? Of course it was always a work. It was leading somehow to TakeOver 30 and a match between a man who has never wrestled a big show in his life, a former NFL player wrestling the most critically and commercially successful NXT champion of all time, no ads please, and somehow it wasn't just your usual hokey wrestler versus non-wrestler match, it was a blinder in my opinion. In fact, it was so good people are now obviously asking the question, well, what's Pat McAfee going to do with NXT? They can't just let him walk away after that, he was too good. And well, ESPN asked him that exact same question, and the short version is, we'll see, but the specific version is Pat McAfee said that he will likely end up talking to the game about it following a lot of positive comments that Triple H put to Pat McAfee afterwards, especially on the post-takeover call. Basically, Triple H called him a heat magnet and an incredible athlete with a feel for the business, so McAfee has said, and I quote, we are going to have a conversation. So the certainly doesn't confirm that McAfee's going to be joining NXT in any kind of official capacity, but does suggest that that could happen if you are like me and one of these people who desperately wants it to happen. Andy Murray, Pat McAfee, thoughts?
Yeah, Pat McAfee is a really interesting one because, He's been in WWE for about, 2 years now, and every time I've seen him on a kickoff show or doing a hosting gig or doing that little shoot promo he did on Fans a few years ago, I just want to kick my television and leave the room and not watch anymore. But when you cast him in a heel role on TV, that's perfect, because that's the kind of response you want. You want to go, shut up, dweeb, I hope you get your ass kicked. And that's exactly what he did. The heel promo last week was phenomenal. Just like, I can't ever recall a time a non-wrestler has come in and just ethered another wrestler like that. It was really tremendous, and the match was outrageous, of course, and it was no carry job either. The guy is just clearly a massive fan of pro wrestling, someone who's studied it, followed it for years, and his athleticism, of course, former NFL player, a punter, but not just any punter, a crazy punter who would take mad hits, I'm reliably informed. So, of course, he's a crazy athlete as well. Do you know who else is a crazy athlete? Kairi Sane! But she's not doing a whole lot of athletic stuff at the moment. She's out of the ring. She's left WWE. Left last month. Don't think of a word that rhymes with that. But she may have already returned to WWE in a backstage role. So before she left, Fightful had reported that Kairi was being offered an ambassadorial role. She would be WWE's Japanese ambassador after returning to her native country to be with her husband. Fair play. There was no confirmation or whatever as to whether or not a deal was actually struck on this, but Kairi posted on the Twitter machine and the Instagram machine last night. Don't know why I'm talking like your dad, but she's got this little selfie here. She's got the glasses, she's got the WWE logo in the background, the WWE Live logo in the background, hashtag WWE Japan Live, sparking speculation that she may have started in this ambassador's role. I think it would make a lot of sense for her if she wants to stay in, under the WWE umbrella and step away from the ring perhaps. It's a real shame that, potentially, if she sticks with WWE, she might not be able to wrestle elsewhere. I think a lot of people, myself included, would like to see her have a few more matches, even if she is going to retire in the medium term. But at the end of the day, hey, do what makes you happy. This sounds like a lot better than getting beaten up and concussed by Nia Jax.
Yeah, this is another one of these WWE stories, which just sounds like, that's no big deal. But when you actually think about it, kind of represents a bit of a mindset change for them. I think normally when people are out the door, that is it. They don't want anything to do with them. They want to stop them working for as long as possible. The relationship tends to sour very quickly until they go and blow up and become a megastar all in their own right. And then they're just desperate to get them back. So if WWE are like shaking Kairi Sane's hand on the way out and saying, you know what, you go do what you want to do. We'll come up with some capacity. You can stay in touch with the company. And hey, if circumstances change and you want to get back into the ring, we will have you back straight away. I would personally love to see more Kairi Sane matches. I don't think she has done anywhere near as much in that company as she could have accomplished. There feels so many doors still open. I want to see a long feud with Asuka. I want to see her go through the entire division. We never really got a particularly good Kairi Sane singles rivalry on the main roster, and that just feels like a complete waste. So this sounds positive to me, even if it doesn't really lock in anything. And one final thing for you, Andy Murray, possibly the most WWE story that our WWE minds could WWE conceive. We all watched Talking Smack, it came back, this was good news, but we were expecting Xavier Woods to be partnering Kayla Braxton, but no, when televisions were turned on, it was The Miz, which is of course no bad thing. The Miz is infamous for his role on that show. I don't need to remind you about that scorching hot Daniel Bryan promo, which arguably helped elevate that show itself to just the realms of must-watch territory. But no, it was him and not Xavier Woods, which has led to a lot of questions of, well, did they change their mind? Have they soured on Woods? Is this a change going forward? No, it's not. According to Big Banter, Uncle Dave Meltzer, and the happy little elves at the Wrestling Observer newsletter, they just forgot to tell Xavier Woods he was doing the show. So they planned to have him on and they got all set for it. Then it got to the actual night itself. And as someone went, so what time's Xavier Woods getting here? And then everybody looked around and realised that nobody had told him he was going to present that show. Which, just as WWE, I don't know where you work, but I bet you work somewhere that's a small or a medium company and there's all these kind of logistical problems and you think, if only I worked in the big leagues, none of this would happen. Well, let me tell you, in the big leagues, it is 10 bajillion times worse. Anyway, speaking of worse, let us know what you made of all of today's stories in the comments below. Of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This has been your hashtag Good After News. Andy Murray, if people are just discovering you for the first time in this slot and want to get a bit more of you, where can they do it?
You can find me on Twitter at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Humperdinck, as in Engelbert. And you can follow Adam Cleary at
Adam Cleary, CLERY. That was a deep pull. I absolutely loved it. This has been your hashtag Good After News. And we'll see you soon. You can't stop us. Goodbye.